Your child is autistic. And you've just found this out. What is autism to you?
Autism has become an epidemic. 25 years ago, 35 years ago, you look at the statistics, not even close. It has gotten totally out of control.
The rate of incidence has soared 30% in 2 years. Ron Kaufman, author of Autism Breakthrough, was diagnosed with severe autism, but thanks to a program developed by his own parents, he is now an Ivy League grad, recovered from autism, and Ron joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic book, I have to say.
I just cannot imagine what it will be like if we really do face a future in which half the children born end up on the autism spectrum. I mean,
2 years old, 2.5 years old, a child, a beautiful child, went to have the vaccine and came back, and a week later got a tremendous fever, got very, very sick, now is autistic.
Dr. Carson, you just heard his medical take.
He's an okay doctor. Okay. But you know, the fact of the matter is,
The reason there is so much fear around realizing that yourself or a loved one is autistic is because of the associations and the narrative that currently dominates autism. Today, as it's still evolving, autism is diagnosed from these set of criteria. To be autistic, you will have sensory processing differences. What I mean by sensory processing is the way that we interpret sight, sound, taste, and touch. We may have communication difficulties or barriers. So some of us may be non-verbal, and some of us may never develop speech, some of us are slower to develop speech, some of us will talk too much, and the communication difficulties often tie into sensory. None of these things that I'm listing to you are individual set boxes on their own. They all interlinked and they all overlap with each other. Because how on earth can I communicate with you effectively if I can't process you auditory? I can't process the words that you're saying. I can if I look away and make a note. If you're asking me to look at you, I'm now visually processing you too. And that ties into the social difficulties, because socially in Britain, it's impolite. It's not polite to look away when people are talking to you, Sarah. Look over here. I get that it's not polite, but for my brain to function, I don't really care about politeness. I need to look away, otherwise I can't hear what you're saying. And emotional regulation difficulties. So anxiety, our fight-flight system. Every single human being is born with fight-flight. Fight-flight is the alert system that releases your adrenaline, gets your stress hormones and your heart pumping. You're ready to fight or flee because your body is telling you you are in danger. Autistics' fight-flight systems. Ooh-wee. They're one hell of a system, and our challenge as autistics is to find a way to let our bodies know actually we are safe. Very difficult to do that when you're being told that you're a bad person. It's very difficult to do that when the world that you're in relies on fluorescent electromagnetic waves that actually cause your brain to go into overactive mode. So, if behaviour is communication, what are some of our behaviours trying to tell you? Stimming. Stimming's like this. Flapping, rocking, picking skin, rubbing, looking at things repeatedly, saying the same thing over and over again. Stimming is a way to express excitement. It's a way to try to control the feeling of excitement. What you call emotional irregularities or failure to emotionally regulate oneself, we would call feeling too much. From the autistic perspective, there's nothing emotionally wrong with us. It's that the body and the mind are so interconnected. I don't feel emotions without a physical response. Self-harming, so going and whacking ourselves in the head or hurting our skin is a clear sign of distress. Obviously it can be emotional pain or emotional distress because of the feelings again, and the reason your autistic will hit is because they can feel the emotion in their body. So what better way to stop the emotion than to whack yourself and then get the pain to be more physical than emotional. It is a problematic behaviour because it hurts us. That's why it's problematic. It's problematic because my main concern is that you're hurting yourself. Demand avoidance as well. Demand avoidance is a behaviour which people don't seem to understand. I understand it perfectly. Your autistic person is avoiding certain situations, certain demands, because they feel unable to process, deal, and function with the task at hand. So they will avoid. It's the brain's way of trying to keep you safe. It's like saying, I've been there before, it was bad, it was scary, and I am never, ever going there again. Echolalia, another behaviour which people find annoying and problematic. Echolalia is a communication behaviour. It's the autistic trying to communicate. And what better form of flattery than deliberately mirroring you? So all of these behaviours, they're interlinked to the internal drives of the autistic person. They're interlinked to the way that the brain receives information, then sorts the information, and then understands the information. What we should be doing instead is realising the autistic person's individual needs, and instead of trying to squish them out, cure them, make them go away, repress and suppress, make your autistic act more normal, because that's what they're doing, they're masking. They're not cured, they're acting more normal for you. They will have a nervous breakdown by the time they're 30. Try to, rather than to get the stimming to stop, we have to replace problematic stims with safer stims. The autistic challenge, the challenge for autistic people, this is our challenge. This isn't yours. This is our challenge, but we do need you by our sides. Even though it may look chaotic to you, there is logic in our chaos. Our brains do focus on the literal and the smaller details that other people wouldn't pick up on.
Is that you?
Yes.
What are you doing?
Playing in Grandma Maggie's garden. I don't have shoes on. It feels nice.
And we're told that it's restrictive, repetitive behaviours, restricted, repetitive interests, isolated behaviour, trapped within their own worlds. What I would like to reframe that as is this: the ability to focus on one specific thing for long periods of time. That's not a repetitive, restrictive, problematic behaviour. That is a human being observing the finer details on this earth. And if we did not have those human beings on this planet, we would not be here today. I would not be speaking to you via the internet, via this camera. You would not be watching me on your phones. You would not be sending messages to one another via the camera in your phone that was put there by autistic minds. And it pains me because I can see autistic innovation, autistic creation everywhere, influencing the way that everybody lives, but we don't get that recognition.
I can't deny, and I'd be very keen to say that Asperger's has provided me with enormous opportunities, because the ability to see things with such intensity and to record them and to see patterns in them and to process them and to systemize them and also to recall that with the same intensity is an artifact of people with minds like mine.
These type of brains, the brains that don't want to follow the trends because trends are always changing, the brains that would rather focus on the real issues, the human suffering, the brains that actually want to help each other. Those brains are the brains of scientists, they're the brains of advocates, they're the brains of engineers, they're the brains of teachers, they're the brains of artists and actors, and that is where you will find your autistics throughout history. We have always been there. We have always been there. So if autism is the brain interacting differently with the world and the environment around them, then it brings us nicely into the category of neurodiversity. Neurodiversity, we have ADHD there, OCD, bipolar, dyspraxic, dyslexic, autism, Erland syndrome, sensory processing as well.
One way to understand neurodiversity is to think in terms of human operating systems. Just because a PC is not running Windows doesn't mean that it's broken. By autistic standards, the normal human brain is easily distractible, obsessively social, and suffers from a deficit of attention to detail.
With autism is social, emotional communication and sensory differences. But autistic people do come with co-concurrent health conditions. A third of us, over a third of autistic people will identify as disabled. And I am one of them. But my health condition is what you would call severe. And the way that my health condition impacts me and then impacts my behaviours, my autistic behaviours, which are my communication, makes them more profound. So if you have an autistic person with epilepsy, with Ehlers-Danlos loss, hypermobility, with gut dysautonomia, problems with gut digestion because the collagen's too weak to push through food. Maybe they have food intolerances. That's why a lot of people go gluten-free and wheat-free. That's not going to cure your autistic. You can never cure autism. If you see an improvement in your autistic person, it's because they're not in pain. Because you got rid of the gluten, you got rid of the wheat, and you got rid of the milk. They're not in pain, so they're not melting down as much. They're not communicating distress to you as much. That's not a cure. That's you alleviating your autistic of pain, and well done for that. But don't confuse it, please. There are many things about your autistic loved one or your child that you will see the deficit in, you'll see the can't, but I'm asking you to see the can. I don't want you going down the wrong route, okay? There's been an epidemic, in my opinion. There's a huge crisis facing the autistic community, is the curing therapy talk, and it's now led from ABA to parents who are so desperate to cure their child of autism, even though you can't cure them. The National Autistic Society even says this. You cannot cure autistic brains. There's no way you can do that. We are having parents who would rather their child contract an ancient disease that should be gone and die from it than be autistic, because they are so afraid of their kid not being normal. I'm asking you to really think, what is normal? Look outside your parameter. Look outside your fence. Look outside your neighborhood. Look outside your culture. Look outside your time. Look outside the 70 minute, and they are minute, 70 years that you will averagely spend on this earth. It is nothing. It's not even that. What's normal? And how are you spending your time on this earth?